I've been hiding in the back ever since you come. I mean, after all, you don't owe him nothing on me either.
The movie opens with a fire blazing in a building, and some firemen are busy putting it out. Inside one of the rooms, a man is trapped by the fire. He quickly takes out some documents and his gun. When the firemen break down the door to save him, he points the gun at them and forces them to take the documents. The man cries out that I stole this treasure from Jesus Christ and hid it on the 5th floor of my apartment. I never told anyone about it. You keep it. After saying this, the man begins to pray for God's forgiveness and then lets him die in the hands of God. Vince examines the documents, finding Eugene's ID, a news clipping about a precious church treasure theft, and a small golden cross, part of the stolen loot. He shows his partner, Ethan. Vince tells Don that Eugene must have been the thief and was apologizing for the crime before he died. Don exclaims, having spotted a map among the papers, and says this is a map of treasure. He suggests they drive to St. Louis on Saturday to find the old Orgel Brothers factory where Eugene worked. Don is eager, having brought a metal detector for the 5th floor apartment. The two men arrive in St. Louis and find the factory area deserted and abandoned. Don pulls out a gun, telling Vince they need protection in this city. They enter the building and go to the 5th floor, finding what they believe is Eugene's apartment. After checking the old security system, they use the metal detector on the floor. It buzzes, but when they dig, they only find a pipe. Outside, a car carrying two men, Goose and Lucky, pulls up. They see Don's car and wonder who else is there. Inside, Vince removes a loose piece of wood and finds a box with some money. Just as he opens it, a man attacks him from a hiding spot, grabbing Vince and beginning to beat him. Vince starts shouting, and hearing the noise, Don quickly pulls the attacker off him. Don asks the man, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" The man replies, "My money was in that box, and this man was trying to take it, and my name is Bradley." Bradley tries to run away, but Don and Vince catch him and tie him to a chair. As Don and Vince start digging the floor again, they hear voices. Don peeks out the door and sees two men, Goose and Lucky, heading toward the roof. Don goes to the roof to investigate. It turns out Goose had kidnapped Lucky and was meeting a man named Vicky to trade him for a bag of money. Lucky makes a joke, which angers Goose, who starts hitting him. Seeing this, Vicky pulls a gun on Goose. Then, more people appear, Lucky's older brother King James, Savon, and a man named Cletus. They are joined by a cameraman who always records King James. They angrily confront Goose for daring to kidnap Lucky. Don is hiding nearby, listening to everything. Vince is still in the apartment with Bradley. When Don doesn't return, Vince leaves the apartment to look for him. On the roof, King James violently attacks Goose and throws him off the building. Vince sees Goose fall and is terrified. King James and his men look down and spot Vince. They come downstairs and corner Vince, asking who he is and what he's doing there. Scared stiff, Vince can't speak. Just then, Don sneaks up behind Lucky and holds a gun to his head. Seeing Don's gun, the gang members scatter and take cover. Vince runs back into the apartment, with Don dragging Lucky along. They quickly shut the door. King James's men immediately open fire. King James stops his men from shooting, shouting, "My brother is in there." Inside, Don tells Vince they need to find an escape route. King James, having heard Don, tells Savon to go downstairs and make sure the firemen can't get out that way. Savon leaves the building. Don frisks Lucky and finds a bag, which he throws away. Meanwhile, Vince sees a set of stairs on the balcony outside the window. When he steps onto the balcony, Savon sees him and starts shooting. Vince retreats back inside, realizing that the balcony is not a safe exit. Back inside, Don tells Vince to check Lucky's bag for a weapon, but it only holds drugs. Don then orders Vince to grab a rope. Outside, a furious King James tells Vicky to call Luther, Moon, Davis, and Raymond, and to bring more weapons. Vince and Don use the rope to tie Lucky to the apartment door. Vince asks how many gang members are outside. Don says 5, to which Lucky sneers, "Let's see how many more will show up." Lucky threatens them that my brother is the gang leader here, and he won't let you leave alive. Don screams back to James, "Hey James, we've got your brother tied to the door. If anyone shoots, Lucky dies." James replies, "I heard you. Don't do anything crazy to my brother." Vince asks Bradley, the man tied up, if there is another way out, but Bradley refuses to help. Don spots a potential escape route, a nearby shed they could reach, which might lead to another building. They try to bridge the gap with a wooden plank. However, Cleta spots them and starts shooting, breaking the plank and forcing Vince back inside. Outside the door, James tries to negotiate, but Vince demands they call the police first. Don pulls Vince aside and tells him the gang will never call the police because they're drug dealers. More gang members arrive, including Raymond, who has brought more weapons. Vince asks Don what the gang plans to do now. Failing to break out, Don notes they only have 21 bullets left. James decides to trick the firemen. Raymond uses a megaphone and a siren to pose as the police. Savon and Luther take a sniper position in a building across the way. When Vince looks out to call the police, Luther fires, and Don tackles Vince to save him. Meanwhile, James and another man try to climb the balcony stairs to reach the apartment window. Don sees the man and shoots him. The man falls and dies. James yells at Savon for failing to kill anyone with a clear shot. Don, still determined, keeps trying to reach the shed, while Vince uses the metal detector on the ceiling, searching for a metal pipe. When the detector buzzes, they untie Bradley to use his chair and dig up. When Don finally pulls out the objects hidden above, they are a massive haul of gold religious artifacts and antique pieces. Don and Vince are ecstatic. Bradley is stunned. Don realizes the treasure was hidden in the ceiling, not the floor. Vince re-examines the map and says the map was correct. They simply mistook the drawing for the floor when it meant the ceiling. Lucky overhears their discovery. While gloating over the gold, Don falls off the chair and laughs. Meanwhile, outside, the gang's gunfire shatters the shed Don was planning to use for escape, destroying their last hope. King James yells at Savon for shooting without orders, telling him to use your brain, as his reckless actions could get Lucky killed. Savon gets angry at the scolding. Vince and Don debate their next move. Vince suggests using Lucky as a shield, but Don says they only have one gun. Vince asks if they should give up the gold and leave. Don refuses, arguing the gang would kill them anyway. Vince then suggests they at least release Bradley to save his life. Don agrees. Vince unties Bradley, telling him he's free to go. Bradley, however, asks if they will give him a share of the gold if he tells them a way out. Shocked, Vince and Don confirm the deal, promising to split the treasure 3 ways. Bradley reveals the escape route: the chimney. He shows them a set of internal stairs hidden inside the apartment's chimney, which they can use to go up to the roof and down to the street. Don confirms they can escape that way. Downstairs, Raymond discovers Don's car. He slashes the tires, disables the radio, and sabotages the engine to ensure the firemen can't drive away. He then finds and examines the documents inside the car. Raymond reads the church theft newspaper clipping from Don's car and bursts out laughing, finally realizing the firemen are after the gold. Vince and Don start breaking the chimney wall. Outside, a real police car pulls up behind Raymond's, sirens blaring. Vince is relieved, but Don argues they don't need help. When Vince tries to call out, Don forces him to be quiet. Bradley warns them that the police will just kill them and take the gold themselves. The police question Raymond, who claims he was just looking at the area. Don holds his gun on Vince during the interrogation. An emergency call soon takes the police away. Raymond shows the gang the slashed tires and ruined radio on Don's car. He reveals the firemen drove over 200 kilometers, leading Vicky to ask why. Savon suggests burning the building, but James refuses since Lucky is inside. When Savon insists, James points his gun at Savon. Raymond intervenes, calming Savon. Raymond then talks privately to Savon. He shows Savon the newspaper clipping, arguing that Don and Vince are hiding something valuable that they couldn't tell the police about. Convinced, Savon agrees to work with Raymond for the gold. James attempts to talk to Don and Vince, asking who they are and why they are there. Don lies, claiming they were just visiting. James, suspicious that they didn't call the police when they had the chance, demands the real reason they trespassed and kidnapped his brother. Outside, Raymond and Savon set up a fake escape. Raymond yells to Luther to shoot a man trying to escape. Raymond then fires at the windows to create a distraction. James, hearing the shots while talking to Don, fires back at the apartment, and the talk ends. Raymond and Savon claim they had to shoot because one of the firemen tried to run. Furious, James changes his mind and tells Savon to get petrol immediately to burn the building down. Raymond and his group leave to get fuel. Meanwhile, Lucky's condition worsens. He is shivering badly. Vince takes out the drugs from Lucky's bag and says they need to give him a fix to help him. Lucky tells them how to prepare the drugs. As Don prepares to inject him, Lucky begs, "Please let me do it. If anything goes wrong, I could die." Don agrees, unties Lucky's hand, and allows him to inject himself. As Lucky raises the needle to inject himself, he suddenly plunges it into Don's throat instead. Don collapses screaming. Vince and Bradley rush over, finding Don dazed and incoherent. Lucky unties his other hand and calls out to his brother, but Bradley stops him. Vince tackles Lucky and they fight. From the opposite building, Luther aims at Vince but accidentally shoots and kills Lucky. Terrified, Luther calls Vicky and says it was an accident. He was aiming for the white guy, but Lucky stepped in the way. Vicky goes to tell James. Vince tries to help Don, who tells Vince to get out of the building immediately. Raymond and Savon are about to start setting the fire when Vicky arrives and tells James that Lucky is dead, killed by Luther's accidental bullet. Enraged, James grabs his gun and heads upstairs. Vince tells the now dying Bradley his plan. He will climb into the chimney to escape. He instructs Don and Bradley to hide in a room. When James breaks in and sees the chimney opening, he'll think they all ran and will go outside to search, giving Vince time to get help. Vince enters the chimney. James arrives at the apartment door and begins shooting it apart. Vicky arrives and suggests they just burn the door, which they do. Bradley quickly takes the wounded Don into another room to hide, then sneaks out to grab the gold. James breaks through the burning door and sees Lucky's body. His men spray petrol around the building. Vicky finds the chimney hole. James looks up and sees Vince climbing, so he shoots at him. Vince quickly climbs higher. James follows him up. On the roof, Vince rappels down using a rope just as James is about to shoot him. Vince crashes through a lower floor window and starts running down the stairs. Bradley, who was gathering the gold, fumbles his treasure bags. Vicky hears the chaos and grabs an axe to break down the door of the room where Bradley hides, and when Vicky breaks in, Don, regaining consciousness, attacks Vicky with the axe and takes his gun. Just then, King James returns. He and Don fire their guns at the same time, killing each other instantly. Bradley tries to leave with a bag of treasure, but James's men arrive and see James is dead. They are about to shoot Bradley, but the cameraman tells them not to, saying Bradley isn't the enemy. The gang member tells Bradley to get out fast before they burn the place, and he leaves. Vince climbs down to the ground floor, ready to escape, but sees his car is destroyed. As Bradley tries to walk away with the gold, Savon confronts him and demands the bag. Bradley leaves the bag and runs. Savon happily opens the bag, finds the treasure, and heads back to the building. Outside, Savon runs into Raymond. Raymond demands the treasure bag, but Savon refuses. They shoot at each other, and Raymond is killed. Savon is injured. Bradley, who was watching, runs back to grab the bag. Savon tries to stop Bradley, but a piece of the burning building falls on Savon, killing him. Bradley then climbs down the chimney with the treasure. Vince comes out and sees the building burning. A saddened Vince is told by Bradley that Don was killed by Lucky. Bradley urges Vince to run away before the rest of the gang finds him. Vince runs, saving his life. Bradley picks up the bag of gold, laughs loudly, and walks away with the treasure, and here the movie ends.